Curiosity over judgment is the quiet art of leaning into another person's inner world without immediately labeling or evaluating it. In friendships, the things left unsaid often carry more weight than the things openly discussed. We are trained, socially and emotionally, to respond quickly with conclusions, to measure, categorize, and assess. Yet when it comes to the delicate fabric of friendship, that instinct to judge can be the very thing that closes doors instead of opening them. To be curious is to suspend the need for immediate understanding or resolution. It is to ask questions not for the sake of control or explanation, but for the sake of seeing the other person more fully in the complex, sometimes contradictory way they exist. Friendships, unlike romantic or familial bonds, often carry a paradoxical freedom and vulnerability. We are free to step away, yet deeply bound by shared histories, by laughter, secrets, and small rituals. When unspoken tensions or desires arise, the mind instinctively wants to categorize them. This is resentment, this is jealousy, this is disappointment. But such judgments risk reducing the other person to a single dimension. Curiosity, in contrast, allows for complexity. It asks, what is happening for you beneath the surface? How does this feel in your experience? It does not demand an immediate answer or justification. It does not measure worth or loyalty. Curiosity also demands self-awareness. It asks us to notice the judgments rising within ourselves before projecting them onto the other. When a friend says something that unsettles us, when we sense distance or frustration in their presence, our first impulse might be to label them as indifferent, careless, or even hurtful. Curiosity, however, invites a pause. It encourages us to ask internally, what am I interpreting through my own fears, insecurities, or expectations? This reflective stance opens the door for empathy. It transforms the energy from confrontation to exploration, from accusation to genuine interest. Furthermore, curiosity over judgment nurtures the unspoken. Often in friendships, there are feelings too vulnerable to articulate. Small disappointments, envy that feels shameful, or longings for deeper connection. To approach these unspoken spaces with judgment is to risk shutting them down entirely. Curiosity, however, creates a safe container. It allows both friends to inhabit the tension without immediately resolving or negating it. It is a gentle acknowledgement that every emotion, every thought, no matter how awkward or uncomfortable, deserves attention and recognition. In practical terms, this might mean choosing questions over statements, reflections over interpretations, and active listening over rebuttal. It is noticing pauses, silences, and body language without rushing to fill them with explanations. It is offering space for the other to reveal themselves at their own pace, while remaining present and attentive. Curiosity is not passive. It is a deliberate stance, a conscious choice to prioritize understanding over judgment, connection over correctness, and exploration over certainty. In this sense, curiosity becomes an act of courage within friendship. It challenges the habitual ways we protect ourselves by assuming, labeling, or avoiding. It allows for the possibility that the unspoken is not a problem to fix, but an opportunity to witness, to honor, and to deepen the relational bond in a way that judgment never could. Silence in a friendship is rarely empty. It carries weight, meaning, and emotion, often speaking louder than any words could. We tend to think of silence as absence, as a void, but in the relational landscape of friendship, silence is a presence. It can be a space of comfort where two people can exist without needing constant affirmation or dialogue, or it can be a space of tension where unspoken thoughts and emotions swirl quietly beneath the surface. Recognizing the power of silence is about noticing how these moments function, how they protect, conceal, or reveal the inner dynamics of connection. Silence can signal intimacy in its purest form. Two friends sitting together without speaking, yet feeling entirely seen and understood, are engaging in a subtle conversation that words could interrupt. This kind of silence is nourishing because it communicates trust, the assurance that being with one another requires no performance, no explanation, no filling of the void. It is in these moments that friendship deepens, not through what is said, but through the willingness to be present together without forcing expression. It allows space for reflection, for emotions to settle, and for the relational rhythm to emerge naturally. Yet silence also carries complexity and ambiguity. It can hold unspoken frustrations, unexpressed envy, or unacknowledged longing. When a friend withdraws, or when a topic is skirted, silence can feel like a barrier, a subtle distancing that creates discomfort. The power of silence here lies in its dual nature. It both protects and reveals. It protects by avoiding confrontation or vulnerability, giving the mind time to process feelings, but it also reveals through what remains unsaid. Observing these pauses, these unarticulated spaces, is an invitation to understand the hidden currents in the friendship, to notice the emotional landscapes that exist between words. Silence can also serve as a mirror. It reflects our own anxieties, desires, and projections. When a friend does not speak about something that matters to us, the discomfort we feel is often less about their choice and more about our expectations, fears, or insecurities. Paying attention to this reflective quality allows for a deeper self-awareness. What is it about the silence that evokes a reaction within us? Why do unspoken matters trigger longing or irritation? This examination transforms silence from a void into a dialogue, an internal conversation that prepares us to approach the friendship with more sensitivity and insight. Moreover, silence is a rhythm within relational communication. Not every moment requires articulation, and not every feeling demands naming. By acknowledging the power of silence, friendships can cultivate a pace that accommodates depth and complexity, where understanding is not rushed and vulnerability is not coerced. The spaces between words become opportunities for listening, not just to the other, but to oneself, and for appreciating the subtleties of connection that often go unnoticed when dialogue dominates every interaction. Silence in its full capacity is both a shield and a bridge. It can hold tension without breaking connection, provide respite without creating distance, and allow presence without requiring action. Attending to silence is an exercise in patience, observation, and empathy. It encourages noticing not only what is said, but what is left unsaid, and how the spaces between words shape the texture of the friendship. It is a reminder that connection is not always built in sentences, but often in pauses, breaths, and the unspoken understanding that each person carries their own inner world, while sharing the same space. Friendship is rarely a simple, linear experience. Beneath laughter, shared memories, and casual conversations lies a rich tapestry of emotions, often contradictory and layered. Emotional complexity in friendship acknowledges that feelings are rarely pure or singular. They exist in tension, overlap, and sometimes even conflict. To recognize this complexity is to honor the multifaceted reality of human connection, where admiration can coexist with envy, care can coexist with irritation, and desire for closeness can coexist with fear of vulnerability. When we explore the unspoken in friendship, we encounter these emotional layers most vividly. A friend's absence might stir worry, relief, or resentment all at once. A compliment might bring pride and discomfort simultaneously. Our emotional lives are rarely organized neatly, and expecting them to be so is a form of misunderstanding. Emotional complexity asks us to sit with the contradictions, to resist the urge to simplify or categorize, and to accept that what we feel and what our friends feel can be intricate, messy, and occasionally paradoxical. One of the hallmarks of emotional complexity is its subtlety. Small gestures, fleeting glances, or moments of hesitation can carry immense emotional significance. A friend's hesitation to speak about a sensitive topic may not be disinterest or avoidance. It may contain layers of fear, loyalty, shame, or hope. Observing these subtleties requires careful attention and openness. It requires noticing what is not said, the spaces between words, and the emotional resonance that lingers quietly in shared experiences. Each layer of feeling is a thread in the intricate fabric of friendship, shaping its texture and rhythm in ways that are often invisible but deeply felt. Emotional complexity also challenges assumptions about trust and understanding. We might assume that close friends should automatically know how we feel or how to respond to our needs, but emotions are rarely transparent. Each person carries a private inner world shaped by history, personality, and context. Understanding a friend fully, therefore, requires humility and patience. It demands that we tolerate ambiguity and resist the urge to impose our interpretations too quickly. It asks us to stay curious about why certain feelings arise, both in ourselves and in our friends, without assuming we can neatly resolve them. Moreover, emotional complexity is dynamic. It shifts moment to moment, influenced by circumstance, mood, and timing. The same situation can evoke different emotional responses on different days, and different friends can evoke contrasting reactions simultaneously. Recognizing this dynamism allows for a more nuanced engagement with friendship, one that respects the fluidity of feeling. It teaches that emotional honesty is not always about naming a single emotion, but about acknowledging the spectrum of experience that is alive between two people. To navigate emotional complexity is to embrace empathy without erasing difference, to witness another's inner life without judgment, and to accept that our emotional responses may be tangled and imperfect. It encourages us to look beyond surface interactions, to value the unspoken tensions and subtle cues that reveal the depth of connection, and to allow friendship to exist as a space where multiple, sometimes conflicting, emotions can coexist and be honored. Boundaries and desire exist in a delicate, often unspoken tension within friendship. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define what we are willing to give and receive, what we can hold and what we cannot. Desire is the longing that pulls us toward closeness, understanding, recognition, or transformation. In friendship, these two forces constantly interact. Desire draws us in, inviting intimacy and connection, while boundaries remind us of the limits of that closeness, ensuring that the relationship does not overstep or collapse under unspoken pressures. Navigating this interplay is one of the most nuanced aspects of human connection. Boundaries are not merely rules or restrictions. They are expressions of self-awareness and respect. They articulate what feels safe, manageable, and sustainable for each person. In friendships, boundaries can be fluid and context dependent. One day, a friend may be open to deep vulnerability, The next day, they may need distance to process their own experiences. Recognizing these shifts requires attentiveness and a willingness to accept that boundaries are not rigid, but living, evolving markers of relational health. The unspoken challenge arises when boundaries clash with desire. The desire for greater closeness may conflict with a friend's need for space, creating a tension that is felt even when it is not openly acknowledged. Desire within friendship is multifaceted. It is not always romantic or physical. It can be a desire for affirmation, understanding, or emotional resonance. We may desire that a friend recognize us fully, validate our experiences, or simply be present in moments of significance. Desire often operates quietly, unspoken, because acknowledging it may feel risky or presumptuous. Yet these desires shape the rhythm of interaction, influencing how we respond, what we withhold, and what we hope to receive in return. They are the undercurrent that drives longing, disappointment, or appreciation within the relationship. The interplay of boundaries and desire often creates tension that is both generative and uncomfortable. Tension signals that something matters. It is a marker of investment and significance. It asks both friends to engage with honesty and care, to negotiate the distance and closeness in ways that respect each person's needs. This negotiation is rarely straightforward. It requires sensitivity to timing, context, and emotional states. It requires listening not only to words, but to pauses, gestures, and the energy that exists in shared silence. Desire may push us toward intimacy, yet boundaries ask us to wait, reflect, or adjust our approach, creating a rhythm of give and take that defines the depth of friendship. Desire and boundaries also illuminate unspoken fears. Desire can be intimidating because it exposes vulnerability, the possibility of rejection, or the discomfort of disrupting equilibrium. Boundaries can feel restrictive because they remind us of the limits of influence and control. Together, they teach that friendship is a space of negotiation and care, where emotional honesty coexists with respect for difference. When approached thoughtfully, this tension can deepen connection, revealing the layers of care, attention, and intention that sustain the bond over time. Vulnerability is often mistaken for weakness, but within friendship it is a form of courage, a conscious choice to reveal what is tender, uncertain, or hidden. The invitation to vulnerability is subtle, rarely explicit, and often carries an unspoken weight. It is the delicate offering of self without guarantee of reception or reciprocity. In friendships, it is both an opportunity and a risk. It allows for deeper connection, authenticity, and intimacy, while simultaneously exposing the fragility of trust, the possibility of misunderstanding, and the discomfort of being fully seen. Accepting this invitation requires attentiveness, courage, and the willingness to embrace uncertainty. To engage with vulnerability in friendship is to recognize that true intimacy is built not on perfection, but on authenticity. It is the acknowledgement that each person carries insecurities, contradictions, and unarticulated desires that cannot be neatly resolved or contained. Vulnerability asks for presence rather than solution, empathy rather than judgment. It is an act of recognition, a quiet acknowledgement that the other person's inner life matters, even when it challenges, unsettles, or surprises us. This recognition creates a relational space where honesty and trust can grow, a space where unspoken feelings may find expression and emotional complexity can coexist without immediate resolution. The invitation to vulnerability is rarely verbalized in direct terms. Often, It is communicated through tone, body language, or the willingness to linger in uncomfortable silences. It is in the subtle question left hanging, the pause before a difficult topic, or the quiet gaze that invites acknowledgement without demand. Responding to this invitation requires mindfulness, the ability to listen deeply without rushing to interpret, fix, or judge. It asks that we meet the other person's tenderness with our own, creating a dynamic of mutual receptivity that honors both the courage to reveal and the capacity to hold. Vulnerability is also intertwined with risk. To be vulnerable is to expose the parts of ourselves that may be rejected, misunderstood, or misinterpreted. In friendship, this risk is heightened by the shared history and emotional investment that already exists. A word, a gesture, or a disclosure can shift relational equilibrium, revealing tensions or desires that had remained unspoken. Yet these risks are not accidental. They are inherent to the depth of connection that makes friendship meaningful. The very act of risking openness signals the importance of the relationship, the desire to be understood, and the willingness to accept uncertainty as part of intimacy. The invitation to vulnerability also illuminates the unspoken agreements within friendship, the tacit understanding of safety, trust, and respect. It asks that both friends remain attentive to the boundaries, emotional complexity, and rhythms of each other's inner lives. Responding to vulnerability with empathy rather than defensiveness, with presence rather than avoidance, transforms moments of exposure into opportunities for connection. It is through these shared vulnerabilities that friendship acquires depth, texture, and resilience, where unspoken truths become bridges rather than barriers, and where emotional intimacy can flourish in the spaces that were once silent or uncertain.